prove that there was ever any injury, because as far as an endangering goes, it's not an element of proof that they have to make. Now, we agree, and we will stipulate that all of the children that are in the indictment were either killed or injured as listed in the indictment. It's not any matter of disputed facts. And one of the cases that we talked about in the motion in limine is Erazo versus State. And Erazo is particular. The language of Erazo is that an autopsy photograph they're not admissible solely to show that a person died. And so their language is, in other words, the relevance value of the photograph is to show appearance. The appearance of the dead fetus in this case was irrelevant. A crime scene photograph or an autopsy photograph is not admissible simply to show the death of the individual. Our position is that's all that these are. That's all they have relevance, is to show the death of. So now we're asking the court to do a 403 balancing test. The probative value in light of a stipulation is low, is extremely low. All they need is to show something that is not in dispute in the first place. But the prejudicial danger, as the court has viewed these photographs, the prejudicial danger is extremely high. This was a tragedy. When we talk about prejudicial danger, does the court have some concern that it could affect a juror irrationally, to where the juror is not rationally basing a verdict on the actions of the defendant and whether or not the defendant committed a crime, but basing their verdict on the horrors of the photo. Again, we go back to the fact that Adrian Gonzalez did not take a firearm, did not shoot any one of these children. We know who did cause these injuries and the deaths of these children. And so we're asking that the state not be allowed to do that. Now, I also know that in the law there is, it is typically that the state does not have to accept a stipulation from the defense. However, there are some exceptions to that. One of the exceptions is found in Temez, which is kind of a classic case, and that was a DWI case where the person had 9 prior DWIs. The defense was willing to stipulate that, hey, he's been previously convicted twice before to get to the felony jurisdictional aspect. And the court said, the prosecution at the time said, we don't have to accept that stipulation. They went ahead and put on 9 DWIs. And the court came back and reversed and said, look, there is no probative value in light of a stipulation that's going to establish the issue that you want to establish in the first place. There's only prejudicial danger after that. There's also a federal case, Old Chief, which dealt with the felon in possession of a firearm. Felon in possession of a firearm, the defendant in that case had been convicted of a sex offense against a child. The defense was willing to stipulate that he had been convicted of a felony for the purposes of felon in possession of a firearm. The state said, we don't have to accept the stipulation, and went ahead and presented the fact to the jury that he had been convicted of sexually assaulting a child. And the court came back again and said, at some point, if the prejudicial danger is so high and the probative value is so low, we do have to accept a stipulation in that sense. This is not an issue in contention or dispute. No one is disputing that Salvador Ramos went into this classroom and killed 19 children and injured 10 others, as well as killed 2 adults, which is not charged conduct here. No one's disputing that he did all of those things. So since there is no dispute, showing gruesome, horrible, heartbreaking photographs to the jury, simply and merely to prove that the individual died or was injured, is kind of a foundational, fundamental 403 balancing test. I can think of, and I don't know if the court's seen any, but I can think of nothing that I have ever seen more prejudicial than these photographs, ever. And the probative value that the state is proffering can only be, because he didn't do those things to those children, it can only be to show that the children have died or were injured. And that probative value is incredibly low in light of the fact that that is not an issue that's ever been in dispute. As the court pointed out, we tried to address in voir dire, but the way we addressed it is they will hear injury and hear about it. We agree that the state can elicit testimony So they don't even have to accept our stipulation. They can elicit testimony. They're obviously free to do that from any of the witnesses and the medical examiner and everybody else that the children suffered injuries. And even they can detail the nature of those injuries. That will establish as well their element. But as far as these photographs, they are so prejudicial, and the danger of that unfair prejudice affecting the fundamental constitutional right of the defendant to due process and to have a fair trial is great. And so on that issue, we are asking the court to exclude any photographs of any child who has died as a result of these injuries or has been injured as a result of this, and limit the state merely or only to the stipulation by the defense or in addition to the stipulation, because we are stipulating and will stipulate from the beginning, but in addition to that, testimony from the relevant people as to the injuries if the court believes that that's what's needed to prove the element of placing the child in danger of death. So I guess on that issue, there are some other issues in the motion, but on that issue, I will pass to my opposing counsel.
Have you reviewed the photographs?
Yeah, we have, Judge.
Could you tender them?
Oh, yes.
May I approach?
I'm sorry. I thought the court had seen them. I apologize. I thought you looked at them first.
Yes, sir.
And, I know they don't trust me with sharp objects, but could I get a paperclip? Thank you very much. Okay, so for the record, these are all autopsy photographs, not scene photographs?
That's correct. Judge, there was one more issue.
when you're ready for me that I had forgotten to address that I'd like to before opposing counsel does.
Okay, go ahead.
But it's just that when, since the court has now seen the photographs, where these children were shot were not decisions made by Adrian Gonzalez, how the children were shot. Some of those photographs are particularly gruesome, especially some of the injuries, but all of them are horrifying. Will be horrifying to a jury. And there's one more issue that I addressed in voir dire, that the state in their indictment charged Adrian with conduct of endangering, but stopped that conduct at the point when the shooter entered rooms 111 and 112. All of these photographs and everything else are from things that happened after the shooter entered rooms 111 and 112. So they have limited, what they have done is they have limited the conduct for which Adrian Gonzalez can be criminally responsible to up to the point that the shooter enters the room. And they've done that in their indictment. So if their argument becomes, well, these are somehow necessary for our proof, as we've said, they can discuss the fact that these children were killed and caused a manner of death. But in their indictment itself, it stops Adrian, whatever they're alleging he was doing criminally, which means that after the shooter entered 111 and 112, Adrian's not being charged with any of that, with endangering or any of that criminal conduct or anything else. So, as I said, he's not being charged with shooting these children. He's being charged with an omission that puts them in danger of being shot. But the indictment clearly does say that it does clearly stop at the point before the shooter goes into the room. That's important because, and I think the state will agree, that these children were all killed or injured after the shooter entered rooms 111 and 112. And with that,
All right. Who's going? Ms. Mitchell? Okay. I assume you have these cases. I'd like for you to specifically address what's been highlighted in these two cases. In his offer to stipulate and ultimately his argument about the limitations on the indictment. But those cases seem to be fairly on point about, I think everybody can agree, these are horrific photographs. I've seen a lot of autopsy photographs. These are horrendous, not so much by the nature of the injuries, but by virtue of the ages of the victims and the innocence of the victims. So certainly there's no doubt they're prejudicial. My question is, can you address the probative value outweighing the prejudicial value, their offer to stipulate specifically in light of those cases, and the limitation in your indictment that Mr. Gauss has argued? So, Mr. Turner, you may proceed.
And if I could, I would start with exactly where he ended, and that is that the indictment ends with the gunman entering 111 and 112. The indictment includes, after the gunman entered rooms 111 and 112 and shot at a child or children in room 111 and 112. And so we have a fundamental disagreement about what the state has accused this defendant of doing. We've accused this defendant of being aware that children are in imminent danger and failing to act in the face of that imminence. And it's the state's position that we're not talking about one shot put the defendant on notice, not two shots put the defendant on notice, but the repeated shots at children at a Robb Elementary school over a number of minutes is what caused this. Our cases that support that proposition are when kids, other child endangerment cases, when one child is injured, evidence that that child is injured is admissible to prove that the next child is in danger also. These are
case law.
Excuse me?
Did you say case law?
Case law. In the interest of E.W., I believe. Interest of E.V. And I have excerpts of that I'll provide for the court.
All right.
But in that case, it was one child was injured. they introduced evidence of that child's injury because they said that was proof that the other child was in danger of being injured. So as each child is injured, another is also. I want to talk about the concept of adults and children for just a second. And we can all agree, I think it's human nature, I think the nature of child endangerment is that we give special attention because we understand that children are fragile, tender years, and for them to be hurt is disturbing to all of us. But are we to now rule that adults can be murdered and the results of that can go to a jury? Children don't get that same protection by a court in Texas. A child gets injured, but because it's so horrible, the very nature of what makes the defendant responsible for a horrible crime, we're not going to allow the jury to see the results of that. And that's exactly what the cases on photographs of autopsies and crime scenes is about. A defendant is responsible for the conduct that he causes. And in this case, it's the state's position that he was compelled to act upon hearing 60 shots into children, and it was the compelling nature of that and his failure to do that that makes this such a significant crime. We're not talking about one shot and one person. We're talking about 29 kids, 19 of which died. Many of the others are injured. Each one of those children have the right to have their injuries depicted in the absence of Adrian Gonzalez acting in the face of that information.
Okay, do you want to address the relative probative value versus the prejudicial?
The probative value is, number one, we have alleged that the gunman entered room 111 and 112 and shot at one or more children in room 111 and 112.
But what's the distinction between discussing it and describing it versus showing the actual photographs?
The case law says if you can discuss it, you can show a photograph of it.
Well, true, but you still have to consider the prejudicial versus the probative. So what do these photographs lend to the jury in determining any disputed issue of fact that could not be done equally by description and discussion?
I suppose the same would be with any injury case, Your Honor. Case law has said, though, that that is relevant. It is indeed relevant. So what we're saying is simply because it's children, because certainly people are killed with high-powered rifles in the state of Texas on a routine basis. So the fact is, what they are arguing makes it so horrible is just that the body is a younger person. And the younger person doesn't get the same protection that the adult does.
All right, would you? I'm not sure. Are those microphones hot on the council table? Maybe pull that one over toward you a little bit, if you don't mind. Whoever's going to be speaking, maybe get a little closer. You might want to test it on. I assume.
It works good.
Judge, from the very beginning, we
Bill, you
said...
got to turn it on. You push that little button right there. There you go.
Should be a green light.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, we've tried to explain that the whole case of child endangerment puts people in a different situation. Adults are required to act differently when children are in danger. And it's because of the compelling nature of what bothers us about children. It's the whole reason we have child endangerment statutes.
All right. Thank you, sir. Final rebuttal, anything? Mr. Goss?
Yeah, Judge, it's just to point out that even Mr. Turner said that in this, are we going to say in the state that adults can be murdered and we show their pictures, but children can't be murdered? If Salvador Ramos had not been shot in the eye and killed, shot by police officers at the time, and he was sitting in that chair, 100% all those pictures would come in because that is his conduct and that is what he did. This is not a murder case, and that's not what they're trying. Their indictment has limited it, and because we're asking you to take those things into account, because a person who has actually done the things and made the choices of where to shoot the children, where to aim the gun, of what kind of gruesome injuries to inflict upon those child, regardless of what the state is alleging, they cannot say that Mr. Gonzalez was like that he made those choices, because nobody else made those choices but the shooter. And then, as the court's saying, we are willing to stipulate, but additionally, every person who testifies will be able to testify as to the injuries, the death. That's the only probative value that it has, and the only other thing that it can do. Only other thing that it can do is inflame the passions of the jury, and as we said, it would And as the court has seen in the evidence, it's one of the most gruesome and horrific things. And not only just if you just took each child, but in total, like all the children, the 19, especially in the autopsies, if you take and then multiple pictures of all the children, that adds up as well. And so, of course, what the state would say that is, I'm sure, is that, well, we can't leave a child out, so we need 3 pictures for 19 children, which then becomes this cascade of horror. And are we able to be sure that his due process rights won't be violated? Are we able to be sure that in that cascade of horror that that's not going to irrationally affect the jurors' minds and make them so angry at the defendant that they don't make their decision based on the law and the facts?
All right, for the purposes of the opening statement, I'm going to deny the motion in limine. I'm going to find that my review of the photographs, that the probative does outweigh the prejudicial. However, I am not admitting the photographs at this time. Having gone through them, there are several that I may sustain an objection to, and they will not go to the jury. But for purposes of the opening statement, I am denying the motion in limine. But I'm reserving my right to exclude many of these photographs at the appropriate time.
Yes, sir. May I approach with your cases?
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, how many do we have on jurors? We have more? Okay, we have the...
It wasn't the sole thing of our motion, but I know that the court would like to get started. We believe that the state's going to offer testimony of how this emotionally, mentally affected. We just asked the court grant it now, and the state just be asked to approach before putting victim impact state testimony as far as emotional, like the emotional or the mental effect that this has had on the parents or on the children who survived or anything like that, which I think is pretty typical. This would be victim impact testimony. We're asking that be limited. That would be the other issue.
Mr. Turner.
Well, first of all, child endangerment is both physical impairment and mental impairment, and we do intend to bring experts to say how the children were mentally impaired, the survivors were mentally impaired. As to the impact on the parents, we don't intend to bring any of that in. It's not about impact. It's about were the children endangered. Mental impairment is one of the ways children are endangered, and that's the only reason for bringing it in, is to show the PTSD, the mental impairment from the event.
Your Honor, I'll just in brief rebuttal. I have not seen, and we've looked, I've not seen any case law where mental impairment has been defined like that. Mental impairment is talking about, you're talking about like actual impairment of their mental faculties and processes, and being able to, it would be like an injury that caused it, not a psychological impairment, which definitely is terrible, but that has not ever been interpreted that I have seen, and I don't know any case law from the state that they can put on victim impact testimony and evidence about psychological and emotional impairment in order to make it fall under mental impairment in the endangerment statute.
All right, for purposes of, as we all know, a motion in limine does not preserve any error, but I'm going to grant that motion in limine, and I'll ask the state to approach and proffer any of that testimony so we can have a hearing outside the presence of the jury as to its admissibility.
Yes, sir.
Anybody have any other matters before we bring the jury in for instruction?
We have a few minutes to go to the restroom.
And I do have one more issue that was part of the motion, and this is something that we typically talk about. It's a motion we typically do in that victims are, the word victim, these children are clearly victims. And of course, everybody at this table and everybody on the defense knows that every child who was hurt, the children who were not hurt, the children who were in different rooms are all victims. Every teacher there, every adult there, victims. However, what the nature of this case is to determine if they are Adrian Gonzalez's victims. And so we would ask that the state be limited to calling them the complainants or the victims of Salvador Ramos, unless and until at such time as he is convicted. But as I said, there is no dispute that they are, and I'm not trying to dispute it, but we are disputing that they are victims of my client and our client. We are saying that they are definitely victims, but of somebody else. And so we have done that. We have put those in and put those types of motions in before because we do believe that it could have a tendency to affect the jury by them being referred to in that way before he's been convicted or before it's been established that they are his victims. If that makes sense to the court.
All right, Mr. Turner.
Your Honor, Sire versus State, CYR, is the proposition that two people can be responsible for a child being victimized, the person who does the injury and the person that has the duty to prevent the injury. Both can be responsible for victimizing the child. So his whole concept that these victims are not victims of Adrian Gonzalez is completely contrary to what the law is.
Well, no, the law is he's presumed innocent unless he's proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt to all the elements. All I'm saying is that and that has not been established, obviously. So, and I agree that you can have two people can cause an injury, but they have not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Adrian Gonzalez's omissions are responsible for any of the injuries of the children. And so I want to make clear, I am not disrespecting them, that I agree that they are victims, but they are victims of Salvador Ramos. That's been 100% clearly established at this point.
How? There's no evidence on that either, Your Honor.
Well, I think they'll stipulate to it. I think they'll stipulate that they are victims of Salvador Ramos. I don't think the state is going to contest that at all, and we're obviously not contesting that either. But I think ultimately is that their whole point is what they want to do is say that they are victims of Adrian Gonzalez before they've proven beyond a reasonable doubt to the jury that is true and that is a fact. And so with that distinction, I would ask that the state refer to them as the complainants until and unless they are able to secure a conviction. And then, of course, if we went to a punishment phase to the court, they can, of course, that's just kind of how that works. As far as them proving it, and I know the court knows that. We're just trying to prevent any danger of unfair prejudice or the jury being influenced improperly to believe that before they've proven it that these children are victims of Adrian Gonzalez.
Okay, well, I'm going to sustain the motion in limine to this effect. They can be referred to as victims because they clearly are victims, but they cannot be referred to as victims of the defendant until and if that is final argument where you have established that beyond a reasonable doubt and you wish to argue that to the jury. But they can be referred to as victims, just not specifically as his victims until that is proven, if it is. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Goss, I hesitate to ask, what else?
That was it. I mean, we had a kind of a boilerplate prior convictions, prior bad acts. I don't believe there are any. They haven't given us any 404B of any of that, and so I don't. It's just if they believe that there's some prior bad act of our client, we just ask they approach first, and I think they would agree.
Well, that'll be granted approach if that arises.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so before the jury comes in, ladies and gentlemen, spectators, media, I know the media has agreed to some fairly strict rules, and we have a written decorum for the media. I've had several hearings in Uvalde, and I've had spectators, family members, victims in the courtroom, and they have behaved very well. But because of the nature, now that we have a jury impaneled and sworn, I will tell you under the Nueces County local rules, if there is an outburst or some sort of a problem in the courtroom, there's not going to be warnings. It will be removal for the remainder of the case. So please be cognizant of that and honor that, because we have to maintain order, and that is what their local rules demand. So let's take 5 minutes and we'll get the jury in.
Yes, sir. And just while we're on that break.
Very much, sir. You may be seated in the courtroom. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. We appreciate you being here on time. As discussed in voir dire yesterday, there are matters that the law requires us to take up outside your presence, and some of them occur during the trial. Some of them occur pre-trial, and they sometimes take longer than anticipated, but do not hold that against either side. It's mandated by law, and we have to comply with the law. Now, yesterday I gave you a condensed form of instructions because it was rather late in the day. So I gave you the highlights, but I'm going to read to you at this time the general instructions in a criminal case that you will be governed by throughout the trial. You can take them home with you. They make excellent bedtime reading if you have some insomnia, but they're yours to keep, but you need to follow them throughout the course of the trial. Number one, do not mingle with nor talk to the attorneys, the witnesses, the parties, or any other person who might be connected with or interested in the case except for casual greetings. They, as I told you, have to follow these same instructions, and you will understand it when they do. Number two, do not accept from nor give to any of the persons any favors, however slight, such as rides, food, or refreshments. Three, do not discuss anything about the case, including with each other, or even mention it to anyone whomsoever, including your wife or husband, nor permit anyone to mention it in your hearing until you are discharged as jurors or excused from this case. If anybody attempts to discuss the case with you, report it to me or one of the officers immediately. Do not even discuss the case amongst yourselves, as I told you, until all of the evidence is closed, you have heard the charge of the court, the attorney's arguments, and you have been sent to the jury room solely at that time to deliberate on the verdict. Do not make any independent investigations about the facts of the case. To privately seek out information about the case on trial is improper. All evidence must be presented in open court so that each side may question the witnesses and make proper objections. This avoids a trial based upon secret evidence. These rules apply to jurors the same as they apply to the parties and to myself. If you know of or learn anything about the case except from the evidence admitted during the course of the trial, you must tell me about it at once. You have just taken an oath that you will render a verdict on the evidence submitted to you under the charge and under my rulings and nothing else. Do not make personal investigations, inspections, observations, or experiments, nor personally attempt to view premises, things, or articles not produced and admitted in court. Do not let any third party or anyone else do these things for you. Do not tell other jurors about your own personal experiences or those of other persons, nor relate any special information. A juror may have special knowledge of matters such as business, technical, professional, scientific, or he or she may have expert knowledge or opinions, or he or she may know what happened in this or some other lawsuit. To tell other jurors any of this information is a violation of these instructions. Do not seek information contained in law books, dictionaries, public or private records, or elsewhere which is not admitted into evidence. I am further instructing you specifically that you are not to secure or attempt to secure any information of any type relating to this case from the internet, social media, or any other vehicle. Please turn off cell phones and other electronic devices while in the courtroom and while deliberating. Other than taking care of personal business, do not communicate with anyone through an electronic device such as a phone, text, email, chat, blog, tweet, Facebook, etc. Do not post any information about the case on the internet before these court proceedings end and you are released from jury duty. Do not record or photograph any part of these court proceedings. At the conclusion of all of the evidence, I will submit to you a written charge. Since you will need to consider all of the evidence admitted by me, it is important you pay close attention to the evidence as it is presented. The Texas law does permit proof of any violation of the rules of proper jury conduct. By this I mean that jurors and others may be called upon to testify in open court about acts of jury misconduct. I instruct you, therefore, to follow carefully all of these instructions which I have given you, as well as any others that come up during the course of the trial, which you may later receive. You may keep these instructions and review them as you wish. A violation of these instructions should be reported to me immediately. Respectfully submitted, Sid Harrell, presiding judge. With that, ladies and gentlemen, you were impaneled and sworn yesterday. At this time, both sides have an opportunity to make what is known as an opening statement. What the lawyers say in the opening statement is not to be construed as evidence in the case, but they do have the right to summarize what they believe the evidence will show in the case. The state has the opportunity to go first. The defense may either immediately follow them or reserve their opening statement to the opening of their own case. So I'll ask the state to address you at this time. Did y'all have the indictment already? Yeah. Okay, Ryan, do you have it? The amendment? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to read the indictment, but with certain qualifications that I was going to address with you, and then we'll do the opening statements. There's 29 counts, as we discussed yesterday when we did the voir dire. Both sides have agreed to not read the entire indictment. There are going to be indictment selected counts. They are identical. They'll describe that to you. And then at the conclusion of the reading of the indictment, I will have the defendant enter his plea as to the entire indictment, each and every count therein. But once again, they're not going to read each and every one to you at this time. So you may proceed. Would you stand, please, for the reading of the indictment?
I'm going to read the first two counts of the indictment. The State of Texas versus Adrian Gonzalez in the District Court of the 38th Judicial District of Uvalde County, count 1. In the name and by the authority of the State of Texas, the grand jury for the County of Uvalde, State of Texas, duly selected, impaneled, sworn, charged, and organized as such at the January term of 2024 of the Judicial District Court for said county and said state, upon their oaths, present in to said court at said term that Adrian Gonzalez, hereinafter styled the defendant, on or about the 24th day of May, 2022, and before the presentment of this indictment in the county and state aforesaid, as a peace officer for the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District by omission, intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or with criminal negligence, placed Jose Manuel Flores, Jr., a child younger than 15 years of age, in imminent danger of bodily injury, death, physical impairment, or mental impairment by engaging in one or more than one of the following omissions. After hearing gunshots and after being advised of the general location of the shooter by witness 1, and having time to respond to the shooter, the said Adrian Gonzalez failed to engage, distract, or delay the shooter, or failed to attempt to engage, distract, or delay the shooter, or failed to otherwise act in a way to impede the shooter until after the shooter entered rooms 111 and 112 of Robb Elementary School and shot at a child or children in rooms 111 and 112. After hearing gunshots and after being advised of the general location of the shooter by witness 1 and having time to respond to the shooter, the said Adrian Gonzalez failed to follow his active shooter training to respond to gunfire by advancing toward the gunfire until after the active shooter shot at one or more than one child or children in rooms 111 and 112 of Robb Elementary School. And the defendant, as a peace officer, had a duty under the provisions of Article 6.06 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure to prevent an offense against a person about to be committed in his presence and use as much force as necessary to prevent the commission of the offense and no greater. And under the provisions of Article 6.05 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, the defendant, as a peace officer, had a duty, after being informed in any manner that a threat had been made by one person to do some injury to another person, to prevent the threatened injury if within his power. And the defendant, as a police officer of the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District,
had a duty under Section 37.081 of the Texas Education Code to protect the safety and welfare of people in his jurisdiction, and the said defendant did not voluntarily deliver the child named above to a designated emergency infant care provider under Section 262.302 of the Texas Family Code. Count 2. And it is further presented that Adrian Gonzalez hereinafter styled the defendant on or about the 24th day of May 2022, and before the presentment of this indictment in the county and state aforesaid, as a peace officer for the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District, by omission, intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or with criminal negligence, place Uzziah Sergio Garcia, a child younger than 15 years of age, in imminent danger of bodily death, physical impairment, or mental impairment by engaging in one or more of the following omissions. After hearing gunshots and after being advised of the general location of the shooter by witness 1, and having time to respond to the shooter, the said Adrian Gonzalez failed to engage, distract, or delay the shooter, or failed to attempt to engage, distract, or delay the shooter, or failed to otherwise act in a way to impede the shooter until after the shooter entered rooms 111 and 112 of Robb Elementary School and shot at a child or children in rooms 111 and 112. After hearing gunshots and after being advised of the general location of the shooter by witness 1 and having time to respond to the shooter, the said Adrian Gonzalez failed to follow his active shooter training to respond to gunfire by advancing toward the gunfire until after the active shooter shot at one or more than one child or children in rooms 111 and 112 of Robb Elementary School. And the defendant, as a peace officer, had a duty under the provisions of Article 6.06 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure to prevent an offense against a person about to be committed in his presence and use as much force as necessary to prevent the commission of the offense and no greater. And under the provisions of Article 6.05 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, the defendant, as a peace officer, had a duty, after being informed in any manner that a threat had been made by one person, to do some injury to another person to prevent the threatened injury if within his power. And the defendant, as a police officer of the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District, had a duty under Section 37.081 of the Texas Education Code to protect the safety and welfare of people in his jurisdiction. And the said defendant did not voluntarily deliver the child named above to a designated emergency care provider under Section 262.302. Count 3 is for the child of Javier Lopez. Count 4 is for the child Jace Carmela Luevano. Count 5 is for the child Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez. Count 6 is for the child Alexandria Anaya Rubio. Count 7 is for the child Layla Marie Salazar. Count 8 is for the child Eliana Torres. Count 9 is for the child Rogelio Fernandez Torres. Count 10 is for the child Nevaeh Alyssa Bravo. Count 10 is for the child Jacqueline Jalen Cáceres. Count 11. Count 12 is for the child McKenna Lee Elrod. Count 13 is for the child Liana Garcia. Count 14 is for the child Tess Marie Mata. Count 15 is for the child Miranda Gail Mathis. Count 16 is for the child Alethea Haven Ramirez. Count 17 is for the child Maeta Yulena Rodriguez. Count 17 is for the child Jayla Nicole Seguero. Count 19 is for the child Amarie Jo Garza. Count 20 is for the child Noah Oscar Arona. Count 21 is for the child Chloe Merlinda Torres. Count 22 is for the child Jordan Demetrio Olivares. Count 23 is for the child Jaden Gonzalez. Count 24 is for the child Samuel Salinas. Count 25 is for the child Kendall Faith Olivares. Count 26 is for the child Mia Seville. Count 27 is for the child Gilberto Mata. Count 28 is for the child AJ Martinez. And count 29 is for the child Maya Zamora.
All right. Once again, both sides have agreed to allow the defendant to enter the plea as to all 29 counts, but not read all 29 counts. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, all 29 counts will be set out and will be in the final charge of the jury. But at this time, in regard to the entire indictment, sir, how would you like to plead, guilty or not guilty? All right, thank you. You can be seated. The court will receive your plea and the causes. And again, typically, ladies and gentlemen, I read the indictment immediately after you're impaneled and sworn, but because of the lateness of the hour last evening, we deferred it to today. So at this time, I'd ask the state to approach, and you may make your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. It was awards day at Robb Elementary. The fourth graders lined up throughout the morning and gathered at the cafeteria with their parents. To receive certificates of achievement. It was a day of celebration. After the celebration, they returned to their homes and to their classes. They turned off the lights and they watched movies because it was a light day. Some of the kids got to go to recess. Just down the road was Hillcrest Funeral Home. And a man named Gilbert Lamons was working at the funeral home. It was about 11:30 when a truck crashed through a rail and into a ditch. So he did what any of us would do. He went to check on the driver to see if he was okay. He and Cody Brasino left the funeral home, walked across the street, got close to the ditch when they were met with a man who exited the truck but got out with a rifle, a high-powered rifle. So as you might expect, they turned and ran. Shots were fired. So they called the police. They called the police for help. The gunman jumped over the fence, deliberate pace, across the schoolyard to the southwest corner building, and opened fire. Stephanie Hale was in the playground on the south end of the school. She heard the fire, and it didn't make her incapable of action. She protected the kids. She got them to safety. They went into the classrooms. They did as they'd been trained. They hid in the dark and waited for help, for the police. The teachers and the kids armed themselves with scissors to confront a gunman. To confront a gunman. Melody Flores was also out there that day. She heard the shots fired. She had a concern for the kids. She was capable of action. She ran to where the gunfire was sounding. And there were kids at the south end that were about to go to recess that were told, get back in, get back in, get back in. And she doesn't leave her post until they get back in the west wing. But she stays there so long that when that happens and the last kid enters, she's face to face with the gunman. And he fires on her and she turns to run. And when she turns to run, she trips and she falls. And when she gets up, Adrian Gonzalez, the police officer, is there. And she says, he's over there. She urges him to go get him. Adrian Gonzalez says, where? Over there. He's wearing black. He's in the teacher's parking lot. As shots are ringing out. This is not confusion. He gets on the radio and says, shots are fired. He's wearing black. He's in the parking lot. He knows where he is. But Adrian Gonzalez remains at the south side of the school. The gunman makes his way up the west side of the west building where the fourth graders are. He fires shots into a classroom full of children at 102. Adrian Gonzalez remains. He moves down to classroom 104, fires shots into the classroom of 104. Adrian Gonzalez remains. He moved halfway down the wing, fires more shots, this time not into the building because there's no defect in the building. It's not going into the windows, it's not going into the bricks. It's also at the same time when forces are coming, other police officers are starting to arrive. He then hurries to the west door and enters. It's been a minute. And there's a break in the shooting, and Adrian Gonzalez remains. That gunman then walks down the hallway, gets to room 111 and 112, the entryway, and fires in the neighborhood of 20 shots in the hallway. And Adrian Gonzalez remains. The children in 111 and 112 are done as they're trained. In the dark, lights off, be quiet, hide, and wait for Adrian Gonzalez. And the gunshots get near, and the slaughter begins. One of the shots penetrates the window going out of room 111. Melanie Flores is still urging Adrian Gonzalez to go in. She sees the shot come through the window. Adrian Gonzalez tells the police he sees the shot go through the window. Adrian Gonzalez gets on the radio and says, guys, I think he's made it in the building. This isn't confusion. Adrian Gonzalez remains. For the next minute and a half, about 60 shots go into children. And Adrian Gonzalez remains. 3.5 minutes into this ordeal, while Adrian Gonzalez is still standing out there, his boss shows up. Peter Arredondo, along with Sergeant Coronado. They're running up adjacent to another building, get about the same distance Adrian Gonzalez is from the gunshots, and they hear the shots going off. And Coronado yells what you would expect a police officer to yell. Shots fired, get in the building. 3.5 minutes later. So Adrian Gonzalez joins the other two officers and Donald Page, who's just arrived, and they go into the building. He enters the building 3 minutes and 45 seconds after he got there, and after the damage is done. So we ask ourselves, was Adrian was this his first day on the job? Was he a rookie? Adrian Gonzalez was a veteran of 10 years. He'd been at the Uvalde Police Department for 10 years. He'd been at the school district for a year. He had thousands of hours of training. He went to compel training, which was active shooter training, which is pretty straightforward. When you hear gunshots, you go to the gunfire. But it wasn't just active shooter training. They didn't just sit in a classroom, they practiced. They practiced what do you do if it's in an open area, like this open area. And they trained Adrian Gonzalez how to do his job safely. And that is, you look for concealment and cover. Concealment means the gunman can't see you. It may not protect you if he shoots, but he can't see you. Cover means you're protected. The corner of a building means you're protected. We're not asking Adrian Gonzalez to commit suicide. He has been trained to go to the corner of a building and distract, delay, and impede the gunman while help is arriving. But Adrian Gonzalez does nothing more than mic his microphone and tell other officers what's going on. So why are we here? When a child is in danger and calls 911, we have the right to expect a response.
May I proceed, Judge?
Please.
If I may have a moment to rewrite so well, I got a piece on the map here.
All right.
May I please support? Both counsel. Members of the jury. The monster who hurt those children is dead. And I mean, it's emotional. I could understand why Bill, when he talked to you, I could understand why he had emotion. I can't talk to you without it either. I think you heard me say it yesterday, this is one of the worst things ever happened in our country. There's only been a few like this many, this young, innocent. It's awful. But Adrian Gonzalez did the best he could with what he knew at the time. Adrian Gonzalez, the prosecution got up here in the opening statement, and you're going to see, and Nico, my partner, he's going to come up here and he's going to go through the times after I talk to you. But you're going to see that the prosecutor has tried to condense time at some points and then tried to stretch it out. But one of the things that you didn't hear in his opening was any preciseness of the times. We heard about a minute. That's not what we're going to do in this trial. We're going to talk about what Adrian knew, what was happening second by second, so that you can understand that we're right. We know that Adrian never was able to confront the gunman. But the prosecution's going to agree, and the evidence is going to prove throughout the trial, Adrian never saw him. The prosecution says knowing the general location. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And one of the things that you heard the prosecution say, you heard him say that Adrian said, he's over there in the parking lot. He's over there in the teacher's parking lot on the west side of the building. What he didn't tell you is that when Adrian said that, and Nico's going to talk about it, when he said that, This is the parking lot on the west side of the building. When Adrian calls that out, he's over here, all the way on the other side of this building. And as far as being here, calling it out, the shooter had already entered the building at the time that Adrian says he's on the west side of the building in the teacher's parking lot. He does not know. Adrian does not know where he is. But I want to talk about it using this map so that you can get an idea of what happened. First, the issue was that, oh, sorry. The issue was that,
I'm sorry, my assistant's trying to get in touch with me.
yeah, no, it's fine. Where we start, and just so that everybody can understand, and oftentimes in these kind of cases we don't use the names of these monsters because that's a lot of times why they do this, right? He's a monster. What he did to these children, what you're going to see that he did to these children is horrifying. It's disgusting. It's terrible. But he didn't start with the kids. The first thing he did before he got to Robb Elementary was he shot his grandmother in the face at his home. So she gets shot in the face. He gets in a vehicle. Her house is probably a couple of blocks, so if you can imagine the map extending out here, he gets in a car. He doesn't know how to drive. He gets in a car with that firearm. He comes up Grove Street here, and you're going to see that this right here it's like a concrete culvert. It's got a railing here, and obviously somebody normally would make that turn. This dead ends into this culvert. After shooting his grandmother in the face, he comes down here, blows through this railing, and his car ends up in the concrete culvert. Now this is going to be important because if you listen to the prosecution, what the prosecution is wanting, I suppose, and expecting and trying to show you or argue in this trial is that everybody has to have perfect understanding of what's happening. But you're going to see that this is the first thing that contributes to confusion. You're going to hear that there has never been a school shooting in the United States of America that begins with somebody wrecking into a culvert like that. Now, what does this tell a police officer? And you'll hear what the evidence is going to show. This tells a police officer somebody has maybe shot an adult, right? Maybe committed some other crime, maybe committed a robbery, maybe trying to get away, or maybe is drunk, right? And doesn't navigate the turn, or maybe was texting. Some other thing is happening. This is not how a school shooting starts. It just happens to be next to a school, and this is important. So the shooter wrecks, and as the prosecution says, there's a fence right here. He climbs the fence. This is the funeral home he was talking about. People come out of this funeral home because they see this wreck, and he fires shots. Now, where's Adrian at this time? Just so you understand, this is Robb Elementary. These are all the buildings in Robb Elementary. Robb Elementary does not have an officer that's there all the time. So he is not the officer for Robb Elementary. He's not the police officer that's there. He is not at that school. He is actually at a park because he typically works at the high school in Uvalde, and he's at the park with a bunch of the students who they're having there's a different kind of celebration. As the prosecutor said, this is towards the end of the year, so students are it's not, as we all remember in elementary and even high school. Once you get to the end of May, you're not doing a whole lot except award ceremonies, talking to parents, all those other things, watching movies in the classroom, things like that. Adrian is away from here at this park, but he hears the call. He's not the officer actually assigned to even take this call. The call comes out as an accident. A car has crashed into this culvert. He's not the officer assigned. There's a different officer, you'll see, that actually comes up here later on, and the person assigned to the call doesn't ever do any of the things that you're going to see that Adrian did. But he gets a call to the crash, and he says, okay, I'll go out and see what's up, see what's going on. you'll hear a particular thing about Uvalde. Uvalde has a population of people who are undocumented. You will hear that 50 times in a 2-month period is typical for there to be some sort of accident or bailout involving people who are undocumented. It's one of those things that's particular to Uvalde and particular to the region. It's one of those things that officers deal with all the time, and it's one of the things schools deal with all the time. And this is important because when that crash happens, the school does not go into lockdown. Why doesn't the school go into lockdown? Because nobody is expecting that this is a school shooting. They're expecting that this is a drunk. This is somebody getting away from something else. Now, why is that important? Even when he's advancing or leaving his car, what they can see and what they can tell at the time is not telling anybody that he is trying to get into this school to hurt any children in this school. He is trying to get away from the scene of this crash. And that's one of the themes that throughout is that what's happening with this particular situation is confusing the police about what actually the intentions are of this person. They start setting up perimeters that you'll see later because they're thinking he's trying to just get away from them. Nobody's thinking, we know now, they know now, everybody knows now that he was messaging people that he's about to go shoot up a school. Everybody knows now that he was disturbed, that he was a monster, that he was trying to do this. He was speeding towards the school to do it and just happened to have not negotiated the turn and went into this culvert. But at the moment, that's not what it looks like. That's not what it looks like to him. It's not what it looks like to anybody. It's not what it looks like to anybody, any of the officers that come up. But then there is gunfire. And that's important. So he shoots here towards the funeral home. At the same time and around, Adrian is starting his response. And Adrian also comes up Grove Street. And this is important. He'll talk to you about the fact that there was Melody Flores. As Ramos is walking this way, and he does walk. He shoots here, starts walking this way. You'll hear that people from the funeral home, the homes up here, can see that he hide behind cars, and they call that in. But that's not something communicated over the radio to the police. But they do call it in that he is here in the parking lot. By the time Adrian is getting here to the property, he understands. He starts to understand because now the people are calling 911, as Bill talked about, and now they're saying that shots are fired. So Adrian here, as he's coming down here, he starts to hear shots are fired. This is a gate that gets onto that school property. It should be closed. It wasn't. And Adrian drives right through here. So he is responding, and you're seeing shots fired, hearing shots fired, understanding, okay, this is not just an accident anymore. And then you'll hear that Melody Flores, the teacher that the prosecution talked to you about, the teacher that the prosecutor said, well, she acted. Right, and we agree. She did see kids, and she told them. When we talk about the west part of the building, south part of the building, west part of the building, south part of the building. She told them, "Get back inside. Get back inside." As she's over here telling them this, and he's here firing rounds, and you're going to know that that's where he's around this area firing rounds. Adrian is coming here. Once Ramos is behind these cars in the parking lot, Adrian doesn't see him at all. Never does. The prosecutor never saw, not in his life, ever saw this gunman. Gunman's here. Flores is here. Adrian sees Flores from that distance and thinks that she may be the gunman. Or that she may have, or somebody, he doesn't know if it's a man or a woman. You'll see the distances, it's too far to tell. But he thinks that he's hearing that there's a person. Hearing that he knows there's shots fired. He believes that this person is either grappling with a gunman or is the gunman themselves. The reason he thinks that they might have grappled is because, as Bill said, she trips and she falls in, and this is all dirt. So there's like this cloud of dust, and it looks like from that distance. What does Adrian do? He acts. You will watch him, and there's a camera from this funeral home that will show this. He comes in, and he spots her. He zeroes in on her, doesn't know it's a her, doesn't know it's a coach, doesn't know it's a teacher, thinks that that's what he's there to respond to, thinks that that's potentially the danger that he's there for, and he drives straight to her. He goes straight at her until he gets here, And this is where Adrian ends up parking his car, and you'll see that. Adrian parks here. She falls down here in the dirt. Remember, this is the south side of the building. 5 seconds after he gets out of the car and realizes this isn't a gunman and there's nobody else here but her, and he's trying to ask what's happening. 5 seconds after that, the shooter starts shooting into the side of this school. And he does. You can see by the shell casings, they'll line here, and you'll hear that shell casings, when a gun is fired, they go back, slightly back and to the right, slightly back to the right. And you can use the shell casings. There's never any over here, so he wasn't over here firing at Melody Flores. They're here, and they go right up the building here. So he gets in here. So, what they're talking about is the gunman is moving up this school. And these distances, when you go and you see it in person, or you see it in some of these videos, you see the pictures, it doesn't do it justice. This, there's nobody that can see or understand here what's going on over here. There's not. She is telling him, but she's going to testify to you, that when he got out, she told him he's in the building. And she was 100% wrong. He was standing right here, shooting here. And that's okay that she's wrong. We're not requiring her to be right. This is the most tragic day of Melody Flores' life. It's the most stressful thing that she's ever been through. But, as the prosecutor says, Adrian says, well, but she's telling me that he's over there and that he's wearing black. And what did Bill say? He said, well, what did he do? He didn't do nothing but call the radio for other people to come. That's what police officers are supposed to do. Whenever you hear information, you have to call it out to everybody else for everybody else's safety. So you'll hear that at that time now, 3 officers arrive right here. One of them has a rifle. They see him about to go in the building. One of them asks for permission to shoot. Permission, there's not even a chance for a response. Because by the time that they turn around, he's gotten inside. Adrian doesn't know any of this. Didn't see any of this. They see it because they're in a direct line of sight to that door, to that west entrance. Adrian is dealing with a woman who is going to tell you and going to testify to you that she's telling Adrian that he's in the building. But it's clear that these gunshots, as he's moving up this building, it's clear that those gunshots are coming from outside. What Mr. Turner said was that he was supposed to make it to the corner of this building here. That's what he's talking about. Make it to the corner and distract delay. The distance from this point to this corner, there's nothing in between. And you'll hear that Adrian is doing as he's supposed to do. Once these gunshots happen, once he starts shooting into this side of the building, Adrian thinks they're taking fire. He does. He gets to the front of his car and he's trying to use the car as cover. There's a car. He has his car. This corner of the building is about 45 seconds away, walking from where his car is. Maybe 30. 32, 33, 34, 35, depending on how fast you walk or run. But you have to run through open. But his car is right there, so he doesn't do nothing. He gets behind his car to try to figure out where the gunfire is coming from. You're going to hear that these officers here, as the shooter is shooting into the building, all the way up, these officers here, they think that the gunfire is coming at them. Because of the nature of gunfire, and we're going to talk about it. Once you have a rifle fire, it's going to bounce, and it bounces off of these structures, and it echoes, and it comes back to the people, and it causes confusion. So they think that the shots are coming at them. The shots aren't, but it's understandable they think so. He thinks they're coming at him. She's going to tell you that she's telling him that he's in the building when he knows that he's not in the building. But when he calls out that he's on the west side, you'll know when he understands and knows. When Adrian finally figures out where he is, their indictment says, knowing the general location of the shooter. He does call out on the radio the general location of the shooter. 1 second after the shooter's already entered the building. When Adrian is saying that he's by the cars in this lot, he's not there. He's inside. These guys saw him go in. These guys here saw what happened. Adrian is here and cannot see that. Now, other things begin to happen. So, at a certain time, and even you're going to hear these guys, they still don't know what his intent is. They think that they're setting up here. They're trying to figure out. They know he's wrecked and he shot at these people. They're assuming that he's trying to get away from them. Nobody still is assuming this is what ultimately happens, is tragedy. Once something like this happens, right, this was the only and the first time ever that a school shooting starts with a wreck and a culprit. Now, it's part of the training. Don't get confused. Don't get confused by the fact that there may be other things going on. Just like if there was a robbery at this funeral home and somebody's running out of the funeral home, it's not the first assumption back then for a police officer to say, oh, he's robbing the funeral home, then he's going to run over here and he's going to go into the classrooms and shoot the children. It's not the first assumption. Now, of course, that doesn't excuse it. It's wrong. It contributes to the confusion. So as we get here, you'll see that, I think Bill said, his boss arrives. What happens is that some of the officers, as he's going in this way, some of the officers bring the car around to try to figure out, is he trying to get around here? You'll see that Coronado and you'll see that Chief Arredondo come this way and this way to where Adrian is. By the time that they talk to Adrian, you have Sergeant Page that pulled in and arrived. So what's happening is that Adrian's trying to call it out. He sees other people. He then hears and understands, eventually when Sergeant Page gets there, as he's trying to brief him about what's happening, he hears that he's in the building. And Adrian is one of the first 3 people to go in. This is not a man that does nothing. This is not a man that is sitting and doing nothing. It's a man who is confused. It's a man who's talking, who has made assumptions that are understandable that turned out to be wrong. But he was trying. He was going towards that danger. And this is a man who, when it was time and they are standing here and it's time, because you'll hear that Coronado did say, he's in the building, we got to go. But Sergeant Page never said any of that. Sergeant Page said, we're standing there, we hear the gunshots from inside the building, we made the decision. Everybody's kind of making that decision at the same time. The first 3 people to go in, when Adrian goes in there, when he goes into the building, Sergeant Page is in front of him and he goes in behind him in the building, the gunman comes out of the classroom and takes shots at other officers coming in from the other side. Adrian Gonzalez did not fail to act. The gunman turns that way instead of that way. He's right in the line of fire. And he was willing to be there in a hallway with a rifle with no real protection from a rifle. They had nothing that would protect them from a rifle. That wasn't going to stop the rifle. If he turned around and shot him right in the chest, right past the Kevlar, that bullet kills him. And he did. He went in. He's one of the first in the building. But they get backed off because the shooter does not come out of the classroom. But you'll see in the videos, does not come out. But the gun comes out, shoots at other officers that are trying to come from the other way. They back off. You're also going to hear that Adrian has a radio. None of the officers' radios in Uvalde ISD, none of them, you'll hear what they say break. That just means none of them work. They cannot communicate inside the building. His chief tells him to go out of the building and call SWAT. Adrian does. You'll also hear that as people start arriving, right, because eventually there'll be 374 officers that arrive. They, in any of the indictment they read, they are not charging Adrian with the conduct of any officer in that hallway. Anybody that was standing there, anybody that was getting hand sanitizer or anything that you might have seen. He is not being charged with any of that conduct. He is not being charged, in fact, with any other conduct of his. The only thing where they stop is they stop after the shooter enters 111 and 112 and shoots at or in the direction of the children. That's where it stops. So what the state tried to make you believe was this insane amount of time that he had to do all of these things from the time that he's here, from the time he first contacts Melody Flores to the time the shooter goes in the building on the side is about 1 minute. That's what we're talking about. It's about 1 minute. So he's trying to get this information, understand it, communicate it, figure it out, and it's about one, and also protect himself and the teacher. I mean, he's trying to make sure that both of them are not being shot at because they don't know. That's 1 minute of time. This isn't a man waiting around. This isn't a man failing to act. They're not going to prove that. But what they are going to do, I'll tell you, they'll talk about it too, what they are going to do is they're going to show you the worst things that you've ever seen. You will not come out of this trial the same person in your heart. I'm not. They're not. They're not. They're not. It's traumatic. They're not. Nobody will ever be the same. And we're not comparing what we've seen, but you can't imagine the pain. And what the prosecution wants you to do is see that, see those horrible things. You get so mad at Adrian that you convict him. So mad at Adrian that you say, convict him because of this horrible thing that's happened. And I can't even describe it, what they're going to do. They're going to try to play on your emotions. They're going to try to do that. The monster who did this to these kids, the monster who hurt these children is dead. He is dead. He doesn't get this justice. Hopefully he's got it different. But he doesn't have this justice. There's not going to be this trial for him because he was shot and killed as he should have been by police officers on the scene. So now they're looking for somebody to put in that chair, put you in these chairs. But showing you those pictures, like they're going to, I want you to be prepared for it. And I want you to know that it's going to hurt you. And I want to know for you to know that it hurts us too. Thinking about anything these kids went through, it's terrible. I told y'all yesterday, I got a 4-year-old, 1-year-old. It's the hardest thing that I'll do. But what the judge will tell you is that the law and the evidence are the only things that can guide you here. The only things you can use to come to your verdict. And I'd ask Mr. Cook to address you at this time.
Please, Court Judge. Counsel. I mean, Jason laid it out for you. I'm going to go over some specifics. We're gonna talk about those photos in a second, and I think Jason appropriately talked about them. And he's right. I mean, there's an animal involved in this situation, a monster, and he's no longer here. And that monster can't sit in that chair. And so what we have to do is we have to deal with what the government is doing and trying to have you focus on, because the monster's not here. And there's a phrase that you're going to hear throughout this trial that law enforcement talk about a lot. It's called totality of the circumstances. And I'm going to ask you to keep that in your mind. We're going to ask you as we go over some of the specifics that Jason talked to you about, because this is dynamic. There wasn't a call initially for school shooting. You're going to hear something called a 1050. It's an accident. As Jason said, there was an accident. There was an accident, and Adrian was doing his duty at the high school. You're going to learn that the school, and you're going to hear about a lot of the school, and I'm not here to protect the school. I really don't care, because the school has a lot of blame. And you're going to hear other agencies gave the school a lot of blame. And one of the things that they should be blamed for is they didn't have a full-time officer. Adrian's full-time at the high school. Adrian said, well, there's an accident. I'm going to help. It's a small community. The agencies help each other. DPS, Uvalde PD, Independent School District. I mean, they all help each other, and they share radio transmission. And by the way, we're going to ask you to focus on the radio transmission. It's very important what was transmitted and what officers knew or didn't know during this very fluid and dynamic situation. So this is just we're going to go over this briefly, okay? So this is what we're talking about. Not the scale, obviously. School. You're going to hear about. What am I doing? Yeah. Give me 1 second, guys. Sorry, guys. Okay. So you're going to hear at 11:28. At some point, we don't know for sure, but maybe around 11:20, this monster shoots his own grandma. And so this monster gets in a car and he thinks he's running away from a murder of his grandma. And so he's coming down, and you will hear that he tells people online, I'm going to shoot up the school. There's times in there, and that's why we don't know exactly when he shoots his grandma, because he did that before and after. Not to law enforcement, not to 911, to online people. But 11:28:23, he wrecks in that culvert. He doesn't manipulate the corner properly, and he crashes. You're going to hear Gilbert Limones, as Bill said, call 911. You're going to hear the 911 video from Gilbert, and it's going to be emotional. Because Gilbert's walking out there, you can hear it, saying there's an accident. He's walking out there, oh God, they're shooting, he's shooting at me. Because as they were going to the culvert to help, this monster is shooting up at them from the culvert. He runs back. He lets the dispatch know he's walking to the school. He's walking to the school, and you will hear Gilbert, and I assume he's going to testify, and say, in the name of Jesus, Lord, please protect those children. Oh God, please protect those children. Please hurry. Yes, sir, we're on their way. But what I want you to focus on is, how was that dispatched? Incident involving a gun, not shooting at a school. Again, bailouts. Jason talked to you about what you're going to hear about bailouts and how many they have. This community deals with those type of bailouts. And so he deals with that. Between 11:30 roughly, 05, and 11:31:34, he's going to walk very deliberately, as Bill said, towards the school. At some point, he starts shooting at the school from the parking lot. You will also hear not just Gilbert, the funeral owner, say that she saw him hiding between cars. It's important. So at some point, Adrian realizes it, because it's very unclear on the dispatch, you'll hear him yourself, that there's a gun involved. Not towards children, there's just a gun involved, walking towards the school. So Adrian knows in his mind instantaneously that this is not just a crash, it's not a 1050, something with the school. And so he's driving, and at 11:31:41, here's Melody, and she's helped. To Bill's point, she's yelling at kids to stay in the building. Okay, so she's out here. You're going to see Adrian drive all the way into the complex, and drive back here. It's important. This is the east side of the building. This is going to be considered the west side, and you will see the south side, and this is the west side. Excuse me. He makes contact with Melody. Now, there's some other times that are important. This is at 11:31:55, roughly. Okay, times are going to matter on this, because they're trying to hold Adrian accountable for what he did or didn't do, and what he knew and didn't know, and that's important. So at 11:31:55, he's parked, and he gets out of his vehicle and makes contact with Melody. Now, at 11:32:09, it's not on here, but 11:32:09, he dispatches, and he says, shots fired, shots fired. So now he's taking cover. What's important, though, is here, is that 11:32:23, Officer Mendoza shows up at the corner, on the west side of the building. Pay attention to these times. He's already shooting. He's shooting at the side of the building. He shows up. He says shots fired. No one is going to testify that Adrian could see anything. And you'll see some pictures. Look, he's way over here. Way over here in his car, you'll see the picture. And then the shooter, that monster, is walking up, taking shots. That he has no line of sight. Line of sight is important in this trial. 11:32:29, Officer Saucedo shows up on the west side of the building. Remember where Adrian's at. He's with Melody on the south side, but way where you can see the east side. 11:32, Sergeant Coronado shows up. Remember when Bill said his boss? His boss showed up a lot sooner than one running over here. There at this point, you will hear that Officer Mendoza believed he was under fire. Now, this is important because you're going to hear about echoes and vibrations and when people are shooting near buildings and how it sounds. Melody thinks she's being shot at. All I can tell you is, do we believe that she's being sincere? We do. I mean, she has no reason to lie about that. What you're going to find interesting, I think, and we think it's interesting, but is that she comes in to talk to law enforcement 7 days later. They don't go to her. She's not interviewed the next day. 7 days after this incident, she comes in and says, I have something to say. She's listened to the media. She's watched all reports, and she comes in. And I'm going to say this respectfully because we're not going to try to beat her up. We're just going to talk to her. She's wrong about almost everything. She describes Adrian as Officer Page. Completely describes him differently. She says that the shooter, that monster, didn't have a rifle. For sure he had a handgun. She thought that he shot at her, and all we can say, and the government will have to admit to this, but there's no evidence going to show that there is any, that you're going to hear something called defects. It's kind of damage from any type of gunfire. There's no evidence, objective evidence, that there was any shooting this way. No shells or rounds over here, no holes through the buildings. These are just metal buildings, so an AR-15 would have gone straight through that. No evidence of that. So she's wrong about a lot of things. And then she's also wrong, and she tells the ranger of what door and how this animal got into the building. She's wrong about all that. Okay? And we think it's very sincere, by the way, but this is 7 days later. So these gentlemen are here. These officers are here, Mendoza, Saucedo, and Coronado, at these times. Now, these times are important. Okay? These times are very important. We talked about 3209, Adrian radio, shots fired. So Ramos is walking up this side of the building, and he gets into the school. And that's important. Because we're going to talk about, and you're going to hear about agencies evaluating, different agencies, and I'll tell you about who they are in a second, evaluating this incident. And every one of them wonders why this school door is unlocked. This school door is unlocked. This school door is supposed to be locked. I get passionate because that school door should have been locked. And you're going to hear evidence that if there's anything that could have changed this incident, if that school door was locked, and it should have been. So he gets into the school at some point. This monster enters the school at 11:32:58. These gentlemen have been at this scene, these officers, long before that. On the west side, not the south side. With a long rifle, not a handgun. With cover, because their car's there in a formation. So you're going to hear, Saucedo shows up at the time he does, literally seconds after Mendoza. Mendoza thinks he's taking fire, but there's no evidence that Ramos shot that way. Zero evidence. They're not even going to try to assess that. Claim that. But still, Mendoza thinks, and he talks about, he describes it. He's getting behind the car, he's trying to get behind the engine block. Saucedo drives up and blocks him so he can cover his cover officer, which I understand that if it was really happening. Saucedo gets out with a rifle. Coronado shows up. Sarge, can I shoot? No response, turns back, and they acknowledge he went into the building. There's an acknowledgement from these officers that he went into the building. But they didn't go to the building. And we're not trying to say blame them also. I'm just saying this is fluid. They think because of all these bailouts. Can I just tell you, we think the evidence is going to show, and we know it's going to show, because the officers were thinking this. This is not Adrian, this is them right now. Mendoza, Saucedo, and Coronado. They couldn't even wrap their head around the fact that this potential could be a school shooting. They thought that this person with a gun was trying to get away from officers and was going to cross through the school to go out the east side of the building. That's what they thought. That's what you're going to hear them say. Let me tell you what's super important, because Bill told you, the government told you, that Adrian is assessing the situation. You're going to hear about that. You're going to hear about observing, orienting yourself to the situation, deciding, then acting. It's called OODA loop, okay? You're going to hear about evidence like that. This is objective evidence, not anybody's opinion, because you're going to hear it yourself. At 11:32:59, 1 second after this monster got into the building, Adrian calls out, he should be on the west side, supposed to be wearing black. Why? Because Melody's with him, telling him information, and he's collecting data. He's heard shots. He doesn't know where that's coming from. Everybody thinks they're being shot at, including Melody, including these officers. And he does what his training tells him to do, relay information. He's relaying information. He's not seeing anything. Nothing's been done in his presence. When they read out the indictment, nothing was done in his presence. He relays it. These times are critical, and we're going to humbly ask you to stay focused on these times. He's reporting as he's receiving information. Note what's going on where he believes he should be, near the teacher parking lot. He's already in the building. And then 22 seconds later, he is shooting into those classrooms. And then seconds later, he's in the classroom. Opportunity and ability. this is what it's going to play out to. I know when you speak in generalities, it's easy to make an accusation until you have to peel the onion back, until you have to come into specifics. And we've asked you guys, we asked you for your permission in jury selection if we could ask tough questions. And it's always tough to ask tough questions about a tough case and sensitive situations. That's why we ask you those specific questions. But we're going to do it because we have to. But this is what the evidence is going to show. And the government's going to have to stand up when this is all over and after you've heard all the evidence. And they're going to have to they're going to have to say, we want you to hold the man responsible that as he walks into this fluid situation, drives into this fluid, goes to the danger, drives into the storm, because he thinks that he's going to this person, this suspect, with a gun. He doesn't stick back and create a perimeter, with all respect to these officers. He goes in. He thinks and then he realizes it's the coach. At the time, he didn't know that. And you'll see the funeral video, like Jason said. And they're going to have to say that when he radios, because that's when he knows, Melody's with him. She's not going to know what times. A second after, he's already in the building. How can he delay, distract, or deter someone when he doesn't see him? He's completely on the opposite side of a building. And by the time he finds out the situation, observes and orients, and then communicates, he's already in the building. And then seconds later, this animal is stealing children from Uvalde community. So what the government will say and do is they'll want you to focus on Coronado's video. Remember Coronado, the one that was here initially and was asked to shoot, and then and he'll talk to you about, and then goes to this side, and you'll see him running up from the other side. You'll see his body cam video running up this way. One thing that we want you to focus on though is his body cam video and Mendoza's body cam video. They have body cam videos. They both, interestingly, start at 11:35:10. Write it down. 11:35:10. At the same time, because someone from the government's investigation synced all these videos together. And I shouldn't say all of these, there's not that many, but synced all these videos together. And they both started 11:35:10. You saw what time they showed up. There's got to be body cam from when they were here talking, perceiving things. They both, and that's what you're going to see. And so as Coronado is running at 11:35:10, he's already come all the way around, and he meets Chief Arredondo, and then they start running up. And then they finally run into Mel, because she leaves Adrian's point and goes to the school. She leaves, and Adrian stays there in cover, and he had communicated information. And you're going to hear that a Lieutenant Vargas shows up, and then eventually a Sergeant Page shows up, who Melody describes as Adrian, and she was mistaken about that. And then as Coronado and Arredondo are walking up and running up, there's shots fired. Now you will see, and we anticipate that the government will focus on this. On Coronado's body cam, it's moving, that you see Adrian and Paige standing there. Now they're not standing there eating something, or they're standing there talking. Adrian had head cover. Paige drives up. There's a realization that he didn't take any fire, so they get out. Sergeant Page gets out, and it's really a moment. You're walking, they're like this. You're going to see them walking towards the school. Then they hear shots fired. We can hear Sergeant Coronado say, "Get in the school." And he said, "Oh shit, get in the school." And he's yelling and he's out of breath. But there's no evidence that neither one of them heard him. They were so far from him. God bless you. They didn't hear him. And they immediately run into school. Immediately run into school. They're one of the first ones, if not the first ones, Paige and Adrian, in the school. And then there's some officers on the other side. And as he said, they take fire. That's what this is going to boil down to. But we anticipate they're going to want you to focus on that literally that moment, that second that you see Adrian and Sergeant Page standing there and then walking towards the school, and then they sprint into the school, and you see Adrian's gun drawn, and he's in the hallway. Goes in again. We also think they're going to focus on time to enter, because Bill talked about that in opening. This 3 minutes and whatever seconds. There's a lot going on in these 3 minutes. We're going to focus and break it down. It's not about just saying there's 3 minutes, because their indictment doesn't cover all 3 minutes. Their indictment covers what they decided to prosecute on is when he made it all the way, that animal made it into the building and then started shooting into the school. Remember? At 11:33:22. That's what it specifically covers, because that's when the assaults begin. Not the 3 minutes and whatever seconds after, as many officers are on the scene at that time and surrounding the school. But we'll talk about that, and we'll cross-examine on that, and you'll hear evidence about that. And then they're going to focus on Melody Flores, and I kind of gave you a heads up about Melody Flores. She's just wrong about a lot of things, and it's traumatic, it's stressful, as Jason said. And I'm not saying this to scare you but we talked about this in jury selection. None of us, you will not leave this trial the same. You just won't. And thank you for taking on this role. But it's we're going to talk about the photos in a second. But Melody's wrong about a lot of things. Her times, she's with Adrian, not sure how long. So Adrian's dealing with her at the time, and she's with him. There's shots being fired. She sees bullets or glass breaking. Officers are coming, they're around. You're going to hear radio dispatch. Again, that's going to be really important about what's being communicated to the officers by the dispatcher and then by other officers. This is not in the comfort of a courtroom as one of the Rangers during their investigation you would hear say, with 20/20 hindsight and playing Monday morning quarterback. That's from a Texas Ranger, not from us. Okay? Because you're going to hear about interviews. And they're going to really want you to focus on these photos. And I wish they wouldn't, not because it hurts us, because that's what they want those photos to do. It's because it hurts those precious people over there. That's why. I shared with you in board what my family's been through, and so I get it. I get it. And so we're going to ask you to really, well, if you have to get emotional, you get emotional. You may. I anticipate you will, depending on what you see. This is emotional. This is an emotional trial. People are going to get emotional. Bill's a good man. He got emotional. But we're going to ask you not to make a decision off emotion, because that doesn't bring justice to anybody. But I do want you to focus on this. There were multiple agency investigations. Multiple. The DOJ did an investigation. Looked at all the evidence that the government's going to show you. There's not some secret evidence, with all due respect to them, that they're going to show you that the DOJ didn't see. Texas House of Representatives did an investigation. They had a committee. There's not new evidence that's going to be presented to you that they didn't see. This report has a lot of criticism to go around to the school. It really has to do with that door and other things, by the way. Radios that can't work inside, officer not assigned to the school, lockdown procedures that weren't followed, a lot of things, way to communicate, individual locks. The actual classroom, 111, wasn't locked. 111 wasn't locked. You'll hear some evidence of could it even be locked, and did they know about it, and what should have happened. You're also going to hear evidence of the Uvalde police policy from 2015, whether it's ever been replaced about how officers are supposed to respond. Should they wait for backup cover? Should they communicate? Should they observe? And training is going to matter in this case, and so we're going to ask you to stay focused. You're going to hear a lot of training, but again, totality of the circumstances of what Adrian
Your Honor,
was
I'm going to
experiencing.
object to him talking about evidence. I mean, he's supposed to be doing an opening statement, outlining the evidence that are going to present. Right now, he's talking about third-party investigations. Those agencies did not have the full investigation of the Uvalde grand jury, and I think that unless he says that the evidence will show you that they're going to present about these third-party investigations, I think this isn't doing nothing but misleading the jury as to the evidence that they're going to hear in this case.
I think that's right for cross-examination, Judge.
All right, I'm going to overrule the objection. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, what the lawyers say in opening statement is not to be construed as evidence. They're summarizing what they believe the evidence will show. If the evidence doesn't show that, you can recall that.
Thank you, Judge.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Department of Homeland Security reviewed evidence. City of Uvalde hired Mr. Prado, reviewed evidence. And what you'll see, Adrian fully cooperated every time. He wasn't in a corner hiding. He didn't hold information. He cooperated. He talked. He talked to investigators. He talked to the Rangers. He talked to whoever wanted to talk to him because he wanted to help. We're going to ask you to focus on what evidence will show Adrian did. He took the call. He took the call to go to a school that he wasn't assigned to. He drove to the suspect into the storm, thinking that it was the person that had this gun walking towards the school. He gathered information the way his training told him to do. That's what you're going to see. He's supposed to gather information so he can let other officers know what's going on. He went into a building. After relaying that information, one of the first to go in, as we talked about. He called SWAT because he was asked to call SWAT because those radios couldn't work in the building. like Jason said, break. I can't break, meaning I can't dispatch, I can't communicate. So he goes outside to do that. Many officers are on the scene at that time. He stood perimeter because he didn't know if he was watching the east side, he's on the south side, there's a west side, other officers are inside by this time, and so he stood perimeter at the school. He tried to find out if class was even in session. He didn't even know if class was in session. They needed to find out. You're going to hear that the officers are there kids in the school? They didn't even know. There wasn't certainty that even kids were in the school. Remember, he's coming from a high school, they call it Mexican Park, right? That's the way they call it in Uvalde. And where many of the high schoolers were there. So are these kids even in the school? It's not his school. This is not where he patrols on a regular basis. And you're going to hear evidence he evacuated children. You're going to see it on Coronado's. They're breaking windows and they're getting kids out as now they're waiting for, you're going to hear Bortec. These are people that have rated shields that can take a high-powered rifle because they were under-resourced. That community was under-resourced. They didn't have a shield, a rated shield for a high-powered. You're going to hear that there's shields for handguns and then there's shields for high-powered rifles. And they were waiting for that. So he's evacuating children from other classrooms on the other side. And he's checking on Ruiz. You're going to hear about an officer, Ruben Ruiz, who he communicated with. Was tragic part of this. He's talking to his wife, and she's been injured. She passed. And Ruiz wanted to go inside, and so, and I love my wife. I mean, who wouldn't want to just go in there, you know? And they took his gun away from Officer Ruiz. And Adrian kept going back and checking on him twice. He's doing all these things at the same time. Got the building plans because they were asking for it, because people didn't understand the layout of this building. He got that for them. And he ultimately secured the master key because they needed the master key. And then you're going to hear some tactics about how you breach an outward swinging door versus an inward swinging door and what is needed and whether they had the equipment to do that, which the evidence will show they didn't. This is what Adrian did. I mean, the government wants to make it seem like he just sat there, you know. He didn't just sit there. He did what he could with what he knew at the time, and this was fluid and it was a dynamic situation. And we're going to ask you, and I don't know how you do it, and we all have to do it a different way, is to stay focused on this because this is going to be emotional. And because we want justice, right? We talked about that. We talked about that our system works off of you and Lady Justice with a blindfold, and that's what we're going to ask you to do. Because evil is not rectified with injustice. Pure evil visited that precious community. It did. But it's not rectified with injustice. And so at the end of this trial, we're going to come back to you and humbly ask you to consider the law and the facts and properly apply them. And we're going to be requesting and asking for a verdict of not guilty. Thank you for your attention.
Is anybody booking the rules?
Yes, sir.
All right. You know who your witnesses are. The rule has been invoked, so please instruct them and don't let them come into the courtroom, please, while the testimony is going on.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I see some of you are taking notes, which is great. I'll instruct you at this time. If that assists you in concentrating on the evidence, please do it. But I will tell you, when you go back to deliberate, the bailiff's going to hold your notes, because if there's a conflict as to evidence, we rely on the official court record. But if it helps you in concentrating, please continue to do it. Can I see yours up here real quick on an unrelated matter? Good morning, sir. Would you raise your right hand for me, please? You solemnly swear the evidence in the testimony you give in this cause will be the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. Adjust that microphone if you need to. And speak up so everybody can hear you. Please.
Would you introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Gilbert Limones.
And Mr. Limones, what do you do for a living?
I'm a full-time pastor, and then I work part-time at the funeral home.
You're a full-time pastor and also work at the funeral home?
Yes, sir.
Which funeral home is that?
Hillcrest Memorial Funeral Home.
And what community is that in?
That's in Uvalde, Texas.
At the Hillcrest Funeral Home in Uvalde, Texas?
Yes, sir.
And is the funeral home located near a school?
It's right across the street, sir.
From what school?
From Robb.
Robb Elementary School?
Yes, sir.
Were you working on May 24, 2022 at the funeral home?
Yes, sir.
What were you doing there?
Actually, at the time,
Yes.
I was actually just coming out of the embalming room, and we were walking out the door down the hallway until when we heard that there was an accident.
Okay. You actually heard an accident?
I didn't hear it myself. The office manager at the time was the one that said there was an accident outside, so we ran outside without question.
And why would you run outside when you hear there's an accident?
Just because we wanted to see where it's at or what happened, and until we walked out, and that's when we saw the dust right across the street.
And what did you do when you saw the dust?
Immediately ran to help, or to help out the person. And at that time, as I was walking, I was calling 911 to inform them that there was an accident.
Okay. Were you by yourself?
No, sir.
Who were you with?
I was with my coworker, Cody Briceño.
Okay. And did you get to the scene of the accident?
Yes, sir.
And tell us what you saw.
Well, I just remember as I was crossing the street, I had to look to my left to see if there's no end of the vehicles coming. And as soon as I crossed over, I saw a truck that was in the gutter area where the water trolley's at. And then I didn't see him come out of the vehicle, but I just, all I heard is, as I got very close to him, I heard someone yell out, "He has a gun." And I stopped, and I'm like, "What gun?" I couldn't see a gun at that time.
Okay. So what did you do?
I paused, and I just yelled out to the guy. I said, "Hey, are you okay?" And he just stared at me, and all I saw was just this black post, what to me looked like a black post, like a fence post, coming up out of from the truck where he was on the other side. And he just kept looking at me, and then as soon as he went like this, it's when I knew that he had a gun, and he started firing, and I just turned around and started running back to the funeral home.
Did he fire before you turned to run or after you turned to run?
I think it was after I turned.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So you saw the black post, you heard somebody yell there's a gun, and you turned to run.
Yes, sir.
And you said you had already been on the phone?
I was in the phone with 911 to tell him that, hey, there was an accident at the time.
And that was when you were on your way over there, or when
Correct.
did you call 911?
As I was walking across the street is when I was with 911 to let them know that there was an accident there. And then, of course, as soon as I ran back to the Hillcrest, I immediately called 911 and to let them know that he started shooting at us. And then I was watching him through the window, the scene unfold through the window of the side of the building, or the front office, should I say.
So you did get safely back to the funeral home,
Yes, sir.
but then you continued watching?
I continued watching and then calling 911 because we were shot at, and I didn't expect to be shot at.
And why would you call 911 if you were shot at?
Well, because I didn't wanted to let them know that, hey, there's a guy out here that has a gun that's been shooting at us. I didn't understand why. It's like, what was his motive? I didn't know.
Okay. Did you have any expectations when you called 911?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you expect the police to show up?
Well, that's the first thing that one would think, that the police department would show up.
So that's why you called them as opposed to somebody else?
Correct.
Okay. Now, but you stay watching this man after you get back in the funeral home, and you're in a position where you can see him?
Yes, sir.
Tell us what you describe what he looked like, if you could tell.
I just remember him seeing a tall, skinny guy, Hispanic, and he was wearing all black. And as he started shooting at us, when I was looking through the window, he kept pointing the gun towards the funeral home. And then that's when I saw him throw a duffel bag across the fence. And when he threw the duffel bag across the fence, he then jumped the fence. He didn't walk, he didn't run towards the school. He basically walked completely, very nonchalantly, like no rush, no nothing. And as soon as he was walking that direction, I just remember the parking lot where the teachers park. He just pulled his hat up and he just shook his hair like he was waving it, put the cap back on. And at that moment, I saw a white car that went right through the parking lot. It went so fast, but he was standing right over here with us, where the school teacher's parking lot was at. And he just...
So you saw a white car arrive, and this is after you called 911.
Yes, sir.
And you see the man with black hair, and where is he standing?
And the parking lot where the teacher's parking, he was in between two vehicles.
In the teacher's parking lot?
Yes, sir.
And what did you see next?
And then I just, like I said, I just saw the car driving by, and then I just saw him walking towards the end of the school. And then I saw some children were at the playground, the pavilion. And I just remember him shooting at the children. And then from that point, he went...
Hold on 1 second. I want to make sure I understand the time. So you see him shooting at the children?
Yes, sir, the ones that were at the playground.
And that was after you saw the white car enter the school grounds?
No, not after. It was before.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure I understood that.
Yes, sir.
So you see him shooting at children, and how much later did you see the white car?
I think it was just moments later.
And then what happened?
And then I just remember him going through the classrooms, and he started shooting in window by window until he got to the door where he walked in through.
So you could see all of that?
Oh, yes, sir.
Did you see other police officers pull up?
There was nobody there at the time.
Okay. So just that one white car is all you had seen?
Yes, sir. And then by the time he entered, I heard the shooting inside the classroom. At that point, I just, was begging 911 to please get officers out there. And then I saw a police officer arrive, and I was telling him he entered through that door. And that's the door that he entered through. And I just remember him walking towards that, and I hung up with 911, and I called my mom, and I said, "Mom, please get into prayers." I said, "Someone's shooting at the children here at the school."
And that was based on your observations in the funeral home?
Yes, sir.
That they're shooting at children?
Yes, sir.
And you called 911?
Yes, sir.
And begged them?
Yes, I just said, "Please get officers out here."
So you made 2 calls?
The first one, the 911 call that I made was because of the accident. And then the second one I made was because he started shooting at us and telling them, and I was with the operator, or the 911 operator, with him on the line while the shooting was going on.
Okay. May I have just a second to set up, now?
Yes, sir.
And do you want to use your board for the description?
Well, you're free to use whatever we have. President Marshall, if you want to. So you want to get it?
Have you marked it, or do you want us to just mark it?
Yeah, we can just mark it as defense wanted.
Well, can we just, we have our mark. Yeah.
That's fine.
Sorry.
That's fine, too.
Thank you.
Well, my numbers,
Mess up the system.
that's right.
Your Honor, the only thing we ask is, I think that there's some additional writing on there that we haven't seen yet. So we just asked to
see what that is before we get to it.
Okay. Okay, we good to go with that demonstrative exhibit?
Judge, can I relocate?
Yes, Your Honor, and we'd offer Stacy Exhibit 1 for demonstrative purposes.
All right, no objection, it's admitted. Yes, you may move.
And may Mr. Lamone's approach the exhibit, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Would you mind getting up and help us with this a little bit? And we've got jurors spread all the way across. So I'm going to ask you to stand here and kind of keep an eye on these jurors so you don't get in their way, and I'm going to get on this side and try to do the same. Okay? Would you start by showing us where your funeral home is?
Our funeral home is right here.
That's the funeral home.
That's the funeral.
And would you also show us where the wreck happened?
The wreck happened right here, sir.
Where the red X is?
Yes, sir.
And does this red line, is that an accurate depiction of the way you saw the gunman walk?
Yes, sir.
Would you trace that so the jury is kind of faint?
Right here.
Okay, so first you see him walk to the south end,
Yes, sir.
and then walk back all the way up to the north
And
end.
then walk
end
all
of
the way
ring.
for the
And so you got out of the funeral home. Where were you, and where did you go?
I was right here in the hallway, and I was walking when I was told that there was an accident. So we walked out, and we started walking this way. When we saw the dust here, we began to run. I stopped here to look this direction to see if there's any vehicles were coming. And then I crossed over, and I walked right about this area right here. And I saw the gunman, and that's when I called out to him and said, "Hey, sir, are you okay?" He didn't say anything at all. He just kept looking at me, and that's when I heard someone yell. I didn't know who it was. I just heard someone yell out, "He has a gun!" And I stopped, and I'm like, "What gun?" And that's when I saw him, pull the gun out
With the black post.
with the back that looked like a black post. And now afterwards, I realized it was the weapon he used.
Okay. Thank you. You can have a seat. And I'm correct that you called 911, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
You called 911,
Yes, sir.
and you're aware that they record your phone calls.
Yes, sir.
When you called 911, were you in an excited state?
I was really overwhelmed.
Judge, I'm sorry, sir. We'll stipulate to the 911 call, Judge.
All right, you may proceed.
Okay. Have you listened to the 911 calls that you made before appearing before the jury?
No, sir.
Okay. But I believe they're stipulating
Yes,
that they're
sir.
fair and accurate representations. As you listen to these phone calls, we're going to ask you if that is your voice and if that's a fair and accurate representation of the calls.
Yes,
Fair
sir.
enough?
Fair enough.
They would play, is it Stacy's?
Yeah, I have it.
We'd mark and offer Stacy to get the 21-year on,
No objection, Judge.
Submitted.
and maybe it displayed to the jury.
Yes.
Uvalde County 911. Yes, ma'am. Somebody just had an accident over here. I know you're just. You mean, I didn't really? Oh my God! Oh my God! Somebody killing a gun! Shooting gun! Oh my God! They just shot at us. They shot at you? Yeah. Listen to the guy, you know, it's cool. Over here, he's in the back. He's having a cheer at the school. Hurry! Hurry, please! He's in the bed. Oh my God! Oh my God! Can somebody get to the schoolyard? officers heading out that way. You said he's wearing black? No, yes, he's walking. He's walking across to the Robb here right from the funeral home where it's coming from. At the funeral home. Oh my gosh. Okay, there's one officers that are heading out that way. What do you mean? There's kids out there. There's kids out there, please. Oh, he's shooting at a truck and going by. How are we? Yes, sir. We have multiple units heading out that way. Oh my God, these kids. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. My God. Father, please in the name of Jesus. Oh my God. Lord, please protect these children. Father God, in the name of Jesus. Father, I'm asking you to please. He's going to the school. They got to hurry. Is there hurry on the inside? Oh my God, there's a chicken about to shoot. Oh my God, Jesus, he's shooting at people. Maybe it's really. Oh, Jesus, hallelujah. Oh my God. Father, in the name of Jesus, I just ask like, I can't believe there's a, oh, in the name of Jesus. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my Lord. Oh my goodness, he shot at us. Oh my God. They're shooting. The Uvalde CISD school is out there. Okay, so the officers there, I'm gonna go there and disconnect with you, okay? Okay. Hurry. Yes, sir. Thank you. Bye.
And I believe we had a stipulation that phone call started at 11:29:14.
Correct.
All right. And Mr. Lamonis, I believe you described in your testimony that you were called upon to make a second call to 911. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What caused you to make a second call?
The actual shooting that was happening, there were the kids, that was that when the guy had walked into the school, when he began, to start shooting at the children.
And you could hear those shots from where you were.
Yes, sir.
So there was a second sense of urgency. And did you make that call then? I believe you had a stipulation 11:33:18. Some 4 minutes later.
Yes.
So stipulated, you may proceed.
And we'd asked to offer Station Exhibit 22, the second 911 call.
I don't check this.
I think
It's
they're on the
admitted.
they're on the same
Oh, they're
disc.
on the same.
Yeah, so be still exhibit number 21.
21A and B then, Your Honor, with A being the first phone call and B being the second.
All right, no objection, they're both admitted.
And then we play it for the jury.
You got to catch that. Get it back the child. Okay, then we do have you got to the building. God, in the name of Jesus, he's inside the school shooting at the kids. He's right there. Oh my God, he went inside the school. Yeah, we have multiple units inside of the school. They have locations. He's inside the school. Oh my God.
Are those two both accurate depictions of the 911 calls that you made?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Lamonas, other than talking to the 911 dispatchers, does that phone call indicate you were talking to other people? Who else were you talking to?
I was talking to some, I think it was the first officer that responded. It was a Uvalde police officer,
The police officers that responded?
the first one.
Okay. And may I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
You can just sit right there for, I just need to show one time. Just show the jury where the police officers were.
The first police officer that responded, that he parked right about right here. That was the one that I was telling him that he walked in through this door.
Okay.
And it was a Uvalde PD.
Did you ever see any officers at this intersection?
No, sir.
You did not talk to them?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the white car that you saw, would you show the direction you saw it and where it went?
Yes, sir. There's an entrance right here,
Yes.
and the car just came through this direction.
So the car drove in the same direction, at least ended up in the same place where the shooter was?
Up in this area, but the shooter was already inside the building when this. I'm sorry, I take that back. When the gunman was right here, if I recall correctly, it's when I saw a vehicle also pull by here, but they would not be able to see if whatever came through here. They wouldn't be able to see them because he was between two vehicles.
So the parking lot was full of
Yeah,
vehicles?
this car that came through here, I don't know who it was, but the car that came through here went fast.
It went fast?
It was real fast.
And the gunman was between two vehicles at the time?
At that time, yes, sir.
Okay. But was the parking lot full of vehicles?
Yes, sir. This whole parking lot was full of a lot of vehicles.
Because it was a school day?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Lamonis, let me also ask you, the funeral home, does it have video cameras on the funeral home?
Yes, sir.
And do those video cameras accurately depict the scenes both on the side of the funeral home as well as on the front of the funeral homes?
Yes, sir.
We stipulate to those, no objection.
So we'll just kind of describe them for a second. Have you had a chance to look at those videos?
Some of them. No,
Yes.
Okay.
And do they accurately depict what you saw that day?
Yes, sir.
And so what's our next number? Is it all three? We'd offer at this time, Mark, an offer, State's Exhibit 22, which is all three funeral home.
No
cameras.
objection. So all three of them, no objection.
They're the,
And maybe we'll
you're
play
the
those.
publisher.
And if you'll just kind of swing around, we're going to play those funeral homes on that video behind you. You can pull it up. Okay, would you stop it real quick? Mr. Lamont, do you see the numbers in the top hand corner that are rolling continuously?
Yes, sir.
Does that appear to be the correct and accurate time as to when you saw these events?
Unfold, yes, sir.
Okay. And tell us what angle we're looking at this point.
You're looking at the side parking lot of the vehicle as it's facing Robb School. It's on the entrance where the accident really happened.
And where is the ditch where you saw the vehicle wreck?
May I approach it?
Yes.
It's right here.
Okay.
This is the side, the front of the office is on this side. You'll see us walking through here to go across.
Okay. And so what we're about to see then is that vehicle wreck, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And does it also depict you coming out to check on it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you pause it for a second? So, Mr. Leon, so I think what we're about to do is about to get to that point. I just wanted to point that out to you. We're just about 10 seconds from where the original wreck.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So was that the wreck?
That was correct. Yes, sir, that was correct.
And the next thing we'll see then is you and your cohort going over to check on this.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, we have 11:29:05 on the counter. Do you see yourself on that video?
Yes, sir.
And would you point that out for the jury?
That would be the first person on the right-hand side.
You'd be the person on the right-hand side?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And so did that fairly and accurately depict that when you turned and ran and came back in as the shots were fired?
Yes, sir.
How many shots were fired?
To us, I couldn't tell you, but to be honest with you, there's quite a bit. I just remember bullets grazing us.
Okay. So it was more than that?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Could you just tell us what is this gunman doing at this point?
Yes, sir. At that point, I'm already inside the building, and I'm at the far right-hand office right here at the corner.
Okay.
And I'm watching him, and I'm calling 911 and telling them that I saw him where he jumped up. He threw first a duffel bag across. And as soon when he threw the duffel bag, then he jumped the fence himself, and then he started walking towards the school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll watch now until we get to 11:31:36 and ask you what we see there. Stop. Stop. And so around 11:31:36, is that when we saw the white car?
Yes, sir.
And is that the white car that you saw drive to the south
Yes, sir.
end of the building?
Yes, sir.
And the next camera angle will show better where that car went, is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, do we see other police cars arriving at this time?
Yes, sir. I see them arriving over here at this sign.
At that intersection
Yes, sir.
of where the wreck happened?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is the time on the counter?
11:32:25.
Thank you. Okay, just stop it here. And we have it at about 11:33:35, and I'll ask you to describe what you see happen as we start it back up.
And honestly, I didn't know that the police officers were in that corner. I guess that's when I was with 911 calling, looking at towards the school.
You were looking at the other direction.
Yes, sir.
Very well.
Because that vehicle, because I was like trying to figure out, okay, well, all I remember is a UPD
Sure.
officer showing up, and I didn't know they were stopped right there.
You didn't actually see it, but do you have any reason to believe this wasn't accurately depicting the events as they occurred?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. Start it back. Okay, stop it here. Mr. Lamont, do you see another white car there at that point?
Yes, sir.
And is that the second car that you saw heading the same direction that the first white car?
No, I never saw no other vehicles other than just a white one. This is the first time I've ever seen this.
Okay, we'll look at the next section then.
Okay.
Well, would you note the time is 11:34:57? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I think now we're going to move to a front angle, which may be a lot more closely aligned with what you actually saw.
Yes, sir.
Okay? And this may help you describe for us those two white police cars that came up.
Yes, sir.
Fair enough? So as we start, could you tell us what we're looking at?
You're looking at the front end of the funeral home,
And where is the Robb School?
directly across the street in front of the funeral home.
And on the screen, is it on the left side of the screen or the right side of the screen?
What is the Robb School? It's on the left side of the screen,
And where does the wreck occur?
on the right-hand side of the screen.
Thank you. Stop it. Can you see the man who had the wreck and pulled the gun on you at this point?
Yes, sir.
And would you point that at, you might have to stand up, but point that out for the jury.
Yes, sir.
He's right there. And what's he doing as we stop the camera right there at 11:30:16?
He was jumping the fence at that point.
He's jumping the fence?
Yes, sir.
And now we're going to see him walk toward the Robb School?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if you might just point it out one more time as he starts walking, just so make sure we see him.
Yes, sir.
It's kind of small from here. Yes, if you will.
This is where he's walking right now. And then he goes out of view for a little bit because there's a bush there. And he starts walking this direction. And that's where he's at.
Okay. And now look, you see, it's just a very dark blur, but walking across the school ground.
Yes, sir.
And would you tell us to stop the video when he gets to the parking lot?
Yes, sir. Right there's where you're starting to step foot into the
Okay,
parking
so I
lot.
think we're 11:31, about 21 or 22.
And as you can tell, he's walking in between the two vehicles at that point.
He's walking between the vehicles at 11:31, around 21 or 22. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And now we're going to move ahead about 15 seconds. I'm going to ask you what you see there.
Yes, sir.
Well, I may have misjudged the time. Stop. So that's 11:31:42. Can you tell us what we saw there?
Yes, sir. That's a white vehicle that I saw approaching into the schoolyard.
So about 20 seconds after the gunman reaches the parking lot, then you see a
Yes, sir.
white car and it's headed toward that same direction. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can start back up. And you can stop it there. So around 11:31:50, he's out of sight, but he's close to that south side of that last.
Yes, sir.
Is that
At that,
right?
what I remember seeing is that the gentleman was between the two vehicles, towards the front end of the vehicles, and that's when I saw the white vehicle that was going really fast, that went right by him.
So the gunman was still at the southwest side of the building.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's move forward then to 11:33:25. Okay. You stop it. Around 11:33:33, did you see a police car then leaving and driving that direction?
That direction, sir.
Okay. I want to ask you, because it's quiet, y'all didn't pick up sound, is that correct?
Correct.
But during this whole period of time, from when you saw the first white police car at 11:31:42 until the police car left at 11:33:25, what was going on at the school?
That time there was that's when the shooting was happening outside. That's when he began to shoot the children at the pavilion first. That's what I was watching.
Okay. So you were watching the gunman shooting children at the pavilion,
Yes, sir.
and then did you see what the shooter did after that?
After he was shooting the children, I just saw the children, kind of all ran away from the school, and then I saw him walking towards the south end of the building, and then started at every window and just randomly would just get the gun and shoot inside the windows.
And when he was shooting, that was after the white car had already gotten to the south end of the building.
Yes, sir.
And did you hear one or more than one shot?
No, he was shooting at every window as he was walking down. So there was a lot more. I don't know how many windows there was there, but he was shooting at every window up until he got to the entry door.
And did that give you concern?
Absolutely.
And what were you concerned for?
Or just for the children, the safety of the children, and
But you
the police
couldn't see the
officers would.
children.
I'm sorry.
You couldn't see the children?
No, sir.
Well, then why would you be concerned for the children?
Well, because I didn't know whether they were in classrooms or not in classroom.
Sure. That's normal. Right?
Yes, sir. Oh, they're innocent children, so it's like.
Right, innocent children. And that's why we hear that energy in your voice when you call 911.
Correct. Yes,
You're
sir.
concerned for the kids.
Yes, sir.
And now we'll move to 11:34:59. That's a full minute and a half later. And is the second, would you stop at 11:34:59? Is that second white vehicle coming into view now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it goes back to the same place that the first vehicle went, the first white vehicle?
I can't tell you, sir, because I don't remember ever seeing another vehicle other than just the first white one.
Okay, very good. Well, we'll run it ahead. Will you describe what you see this second white vehicle do?
Yes, sir.
Will you describe it as you watch it? And would you stop it there at 11:35:07?
And he passed the parking lot right where the shooter was originally from the beginning.
Did he say take the same path that that first vehicle took?
From the looks of it, yes, sir.
And that was at 11:35:08, some 3.5 minutes later. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Let's go ahead and break lunch.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a little afternoon. What I'd like to ask the folks in the courtroom to do is we're going to excuse the jury, and they're going to go with the bailiff to catch the elevators to have lunch, so we can get them back by 1:15. So if you'll stay in the courtroom until the bailiff opens the door over there, we'll get them out first. Please remember my instructions, ladies and gentlemen. Please rise for the jury. All right, you can be seated. We're in recess. Thank you.